Welcome everyone who's joining. Please join us for a really insightful, what will be a great session on battery recruitment trend and much more.
Thank you, Amandine. So I have the graveyard shift of the last session of the day, or the highlight of the day, whichever. Good. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Good evening. This is a session for hiring managers in the battery sector. My name is Julia Reichel. I'm the founder and partner of our company called Arvensis Search. To give you a little bit of background, if you haven't heard about us before, we're just over 2 years old. The company is run by myself and the co-founder, Dermot O'Mahony, who you may have listened to earlier in the day about his candidate coaching. We're a team of soon 5 people with presence in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, and in the UAE. Our mission is to deliver data-driven and results-oriented talent acquisition services for businesses with climate technologies. And everybody in our firm but me is an engineer or a scientist, so we fit in very nicely into the battery sector because we can have very differentiated conversations with our clients and our candidates for that matter. So we're quite a natural fit in that value chain, and then also into the downstream application side in travel and transportation. So Amandine, if we move to the next slide. I'll be revealing today the interim results of the Battery Talent Survey 2022. Amandine, you can go to the next slide after that. The survey is in its 2nd year now. So we started this last year, and it's the only industry-wide survey running from September through to the end of October. Battery Associates is our research partner in all of this, but the survey is also supported by our industry partners, BASF, UK BIC, Custom Cells, and the Faraday Challenge at UKRI. So if you wish to join our list of industry partners, feel free to get in touch with me. Good stuff. So we'll move to the next slide. So quantitative research in the form of a survey relating to battery talent. Why? After about a year of conducting talent searches for clients, it became really clear to us that the sector would benefit from data-driven insights into what our clients described as the war for talent. And it's true, all our clients were struggling with the same issues. They were all the mid-level to very senior leadership positions in the technical side of things. And all clients presented us with the same issues. We don't have enough candidates. We don't have enough people apply. We don't have offers accepted. So candidates would go through the whole selection procedure and then turn down offers. And we have jobs open for months. So drawing on my own personal experience of working in research, we ran our first battery talent surveys to find out what it is the talent thinks in this sector and how do they feel about their employment, and what do they value, and what would make them move from one business to another. So this year we've had almost tenfold the response rates to last year. So first up, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has taken 7 or 8 minutes to respond. Next week we will actually announce the winners of our thank you incentives. We are giving away €150 vouchers for Amazon and a co-sponsored place to the Battery MBA together with Battery Associates. So if you do have time and you fancy one of these prizes, then please feel free to find our survey. You can find it on our LinkedIn page, or Amandine can share it maybe in the chat later. So let's dive in. So what does the talent think? What are the key trends that employers need to be aware of? So the background. Just a quick demographical overview. The survey focuses, as I said, on the mid to senior level technical staff and leadership roles within the battery value chain, anything from mining through to battery recycling. The survey respondents answered from all parts of the world, with about 3/4 in full-time employment and at manager, director, and VP level. The majority of respondents have been in the business less than 5 years, unsurprisingly, but 57% have been have overall 15 years of experience. What is notable on this as well is that when last year we had primarily a European respondents base, this year we had a high volume from Asia Pacific and North America as well. So let's look at the workforce education levels. The first thing that we found last year was that the battery workforce is highly educated. And again, this year, only 6% of respondents have no academic qualifications in form of a bachelor's or a master's, an MBA, or a doctorate, a PhD of some description. 12% of the respondents have PhDs, which again, if you compare that to the standard demographic in the population, that is quite a high percentage. It's interestingly, the value the talent places on education is what strikes us. These are already highly qualified and educated people, and yet 95% of them tell us in the survey that they would value further education in the battery sector as an add-on, or they would even carry the costs for themselves. So next, we're breaking down the salaries into a bit more detail. All of the respondents were asked their salary levels, and we give them quite large brackets as we're building out our brand and our reputation and our trustability. So the majority answered that they earned between $150,000 and $200,000 in base salary. And the second largest group was in the bracket of $200,000 to $250,000. When we started to analyze the relationship between the seniority and the education level and the salary, we found something really quite interesting. So if you go to the next slide, Armandine, and this is my version of chaos. So we found a really chaotic landscape of salaries throughout the sector, with very little relevance to the seniority or the education levels of these individuals. So what that tells us is that a couple of things. The first thing is that the talent looks to be negotiating individual packages quite well, and based on their own perception of their value. And what that means is that often employers have to offer the demanded salary of the candidates. So, and given that this is a purely quantitative analysis, I also want to add my anecdotal side of it, and that is that this really holds true to the market. Often we see that we're engaged on searches, and the candidates can really bust open the corporate salary ranges during the search and interview process, because there isn't a dimension of choice. So this lack of linear growth in the monetary worth in relation to time spent in the industry or the seniority also indicates, though, that more senior staff might get vested through their employer through higher performance bonuses or other related pay elements such as share options. So the task for us between now and when we release the final results is to analyze that. So let's look at benefits next then. So next up, we do need to do some further analysis here on the packages as they relate to seniority levels and to tenure within the company. So going forward, we will also break down the benefits by region, because we understand that by and large, it appears that there's very low comparison between our anecdotal knowledge about what people in this sector have in terms of benefits and what the quantitative research showed us. I personally, given that we take job descriptions on a daily basis and we find talent, I would expect a higher percentage to receive healthcare, pensions, mobile phones, and cars. But again, we have a large regional spread this time round, so we will analyze the relationship between the region and the packages, and we'll be communicating those later on this year. So the full breakdown will be available during our Battery Talent Day and in our Battery Talent report once the survey is closed and the full analysis is completed. So all that said, what is important is the sentiment of the people in this sector, and that leads us to the next section, and that is the satisfaction rating with the salary and the benefits. So this time round, we asked the overall satisfaction rating of respondents to their benefits and their salary, and the overall score, or the median score, was 3.5 out of 5 in 2022. And again, we will conduct some further qualitative research to understand where this number comes from, and again, present this later on in the year. So next, let's look at why you might be losing staff, which of course, talent retention is a bigger problem as it is the attraction. So in 2021, we asked the same question as we did in 2022. What is the main reason why you would consider leaving your current employer? In 2021, the top reason for leaving the business was because of leadership or culture. In 2022, this has changed, and the top 2 reasons were that people would be leaving for higher salary or to work somewhere with a better battery technology. So we believe that there's 2 potential ways to interpret this. Number 1 is that we have higher statistical validity this time around because we have a much bigger sample size and a global sample size. The second is that this year we have much deeper reach into the regions. So notably, I said that earlier, that we now had a huge respondents from America, whereas last year we were primarily European focused. And then the third element is that the willingness to engage in this type of research process was definitely, is overall higher this year than last year, but maybe the early adopters of this process who responded last year were also less monetary driven. So again, you know, the work between now and November is to do more qualitative research and speak to some of these people and find out. So the detailed analysis will come, and we will hopefully see you all at the Battery Talent Conference later this year. So let's look at diversity, and I know Amandine loves this topic. So we asked how respondents felt about their own business. So how diverse do you think that your own business and in comparison to the industry? And the view was from the respondents that their own business scored about 3.7 out of 5 possible points in terms of diversity and inclusion compared to the overall industry scoring of 3.6. I have to say these numbers appear very low in comparison to some of the scoring that is available on platforms like Glassdoor. So when we compare these D&I scores with other industries, and we feel that the most relevant would probably be technology and consulting, these are in the 4.4 and higher. So again, one to consider where you are as your business, but also for us to look at how we arrive at these scores as we work through this data. So next, I want to show you the evolvement of the employer satisfaction scores. So last year we're not. I want to talk to you about the how respondents felt about their business compared to the industry. Sorry, Amandine, we have a disconnect now on where we're at.
No problem. Tell me.
Okay. Slide 14, employer satisfaction year on year.
Great.
Here we are. So we asked respondents how satisfied they were with their employers. And since 2021, the satisfaction has risen by 2 decimal points from 3.5 to 3.7. So again, we are looking at further detail and further research into the reasons for this change to help employers like you to understand the reasons for this improvement and what short to medium term initiatives you can take to get wins on talent retention. Because whilst this is great news that things are improving, it may not be so good if you're trying to attract talent. And we heard earlier from Freya, for example, about having to find 5,000 people. So engaging with new talent is a challenge. So if we move to the next slide. So compared to last year, we see a clear downward trend in the candidate's own active engagement with the employer market. Now, given the higher satisfaction rates and the increased salary and the wobbly socioeconomic situation globally, this is really not surprising at all. And again, reflective of the employer research we conducted earlier in the year when we asked employers, how is this going for you? So this is great news if you're retaining and stabilizing, but not great news if you're growing. So we asked our respondents a new question this year. So on the next slide, you will see we asked how many people have been contacted by headhunters, and a whopping 80% of your staff said that they get contacted by headhunters at least once in the last 12 months. 63% of those said they consequently engaged into the interview process. So these were passive candidates that weren't looking, but they got interested in a role or a different employer because they got contacted by a headhunter. And we know from our own experience doing this kind of work, this kind of search work, that these numbers are fairly representative. So if we contact 100 people, we would expect between 50 and 60 of those to say, yeah, I want to hear more. I'd like to find out more about this employer, the role, the salary, the location, etc. So if you're growing, this is evidence that a proactive talent acquisition strategy will get your passive talent into an active mode. And it also showed that there's a huge amount of pressure to invest into your retention strategies. So notably salaries, flexible working, and having leading technology as an offering to the market. So to sum up where we are with the main trends. Again, these are preliminary results, but we've seen a few key main trends. So the first one is that 52% of respondents had said that their salary had increased since last year. 72% said their benefits package had increased in the last year or improved in the last year. And we believe that that directly contributed to the increase in the employer satisfaction rates that we talked about earlier, moving from 3.5 to 3.7, even though compared to the market, that is still fairly low. So, to fill that out a little bit, 41% of respondents are now more satisfied with their employer than they were in 2021. Obviously, the main reason to potentially leave the salary has changed. And for this to be a meaningful data set, we really need to look into that. Why the main reason to potentially leave the current employment has moved from something that was quite missionary to something that is mercenary. So leadership, culture, the product I'm working on has now been replaced by the salary. So I'm looking forward to understanding that better and communicating that with you. We definitely see a change in the perception of diversity. As I said, that is on the upward trend, but in relation to competing markets, quite low. And as I said, we see this a massively increased engagement with the job market, plus the pressure of businesses proactively searching and contacting talent. So on the last slide that I have, it's a very busy slide, but the main message here is we will be continuing to run this survey until the end of October. So first up, I want to give everybody a big shout out who's an industry partner. I've mentioned them earlier. Battery Associates is our research partner. Faraday Institution UK, Big BASF, and Custom Cells are partners in terms of proactively getting their teams to respond to this. We need more data in order to support you as hiring managers and employers to bring this transparency to you. So if you wish to become a partner for the survey, the report, and the conference, then we would love to hear from you. What we ask for is that you encourage your people to respond so that we get a better data set. If you then consequently want to get involved in a partnership or sponsorship for the conference, those are also available as you see fit with your own talent acquisition strategies. So I have bombarded you with a lot of data. We've got 13 minutes or so left to open up for any questions. So Amandine, are there any questions in the chat right now?
So no, not at this time. And we can, let me also encourage anyone who has questions on any of the insights that were presented by Julia, that you can also come on stage and ask your own question, or just enter that question in the chat. A lot of great findings there, and as you said, Julia, a lot more to kind of dig deeper in. But I think these these findings are already so useful for the industry. Oh, great! I see 2 questions that just came in, so I will I will read those out. And as I said, feel free to just request to share audio and screen if you'd like to come on stage. So the first question is from Raghav, who asks, what are the opportunities for EdTech in the sector? And I think a follow-up to that is something similar to the battery MBA. So Raghav, feel free to add details on that. Do you mean opportunities for suppliers or for service providers in EdTech, or do you mean opportunities for talent to be trained or available training for service providers in the EdTech sector?
Wow, that's a terrible question. Whether Battery Associates event? No, it's a great question, Raghav. Thanks for raising it. I personally believe there's a huge opportunity for education providers out there. The challenge you will have is sourcing the insights or sourcing the relevant lecturers and delivery bodies to deliver this kind of content. So we have a partnership with the University of Warwick, who are working on the battery skills framework for the UK. And they are spending a huge amount of time looking at what is required to cross up and new skill people into the battery sector. And one of the biggest pains or the biggest restraints to this they have identified is how do we deliver this training? Hege from Freya mentioned earlier that they are setting up their own in-house academy. So I believe that this is going to be happening more and more. I have not seen traditional training providers being able to deliver the suitable content, but again, this is a huge growth opportunity. If I was not doing this, I would probably be doing something around training, to be honest, because we have a huge amount of workforce that needs to be reskilled. They are mid-career and their job is going away. And we have a young sustainability digital native segment coming through from education that wish to move into this sector and might struggle with being told they need to do an apprenticeship when maybe an academic plus something hands-on might be more attractive. So I think there's a huge opportunity, but I think it's about partnerships. I don't think this is a sales model. I think this would be a partnership model.
Great. And Reichel followed up with, how do I quantify in USD per year this EdTech opportunity? I think that's a great question. But
Fantastic.
as we say, it's also whether we're talking just Europe with its 800,000 people in need of scale of upskilling, or the 10 million plus estimated by the VEF. So I think it's also a matter of region and a level at which we're talking that this training is necessary. But if either of us, I think, come around this number, we'll be sure to communicate that actually with you. I'll be sure to take your contact. There's another question, Julia, on the difference between in profiles of respondents. So Jordan asks, do you see a big difference in responses offered between technical versus managerial people of similar seniority levels?
So, John, I think what you're asking me is people who have a same tenure but are at different ranks in the business. Is that what you're asking me?
Or, as well as technical versus, I guess, non-technical.
Yeah. So our target for this research are the technical roles, simply because we know from client conversations and working in this sector, that it's the technical roles that produce the biggest challenge. We have seen I'm just looking at my data here right now. We have seen a higher response rate. The highest response rate, sorry, let me say this differently. The highest response rate we've had were in the managerial segment, and the second highest in the director, followed by C-level, though C-level and what I would call main crew, so anybody lower than managerial grade, are about the same. So what that tells me is that people in this manager and director level are concerned with this topic. Let me just read your question. Do you see a difference in responses? So that's the response level. In terms of how that breaks out, in terms of their trends, that work we still need to do. And if you join us or if you download our report in November, that's when we will have that ready. I hope that answers half your question.
Great. Yes, he says yes. Wonderful. I believe we had another question from Arnaud on the question is, what do you think the ratio of trained battery engineers to job openings is at the moment?
Yeah, Arnaud. So again, I sound like a stuck record. That's the work we will need to do between now and November. So earlier in the year, we ran a research cycle into the employer sector, and we looked at how many roles have been open, how long have they been open, what kind of levels were they at, etc. And some of the extrapolation we need to do is to say, okay, how many suitable applicants would the market have per role? We know that application rates can be frantic, chaotic. For the same type of role, our clients tell us that they can have anything from no applications to hundreds. So then the question is, how many were suitable? And the median answer we had from the employer research that around 20% of applicants were suitable to interview in those kind of battery engineer roles. What that means in terms of how many are available versus the roles open, we don't know yet. But thanks for bringing it to this group, because that is one of the most important pieces of work we need to do between now and November.
And I've asked also participants to, feel free to share the type of insights as well that you'd be interested in seeing from this survey and the other survey that Arvensis launched. I don't know also, Julia, if you have any timelines to share in terms of the next round of findings for both surveys, if that's something that's pertinent at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the survey for the talent survey will remain open till the last week of October. And we will then close that out. And we will probably do a short refresh on the employer survey so that we have fresh and a new data set or fresh data set when we bring all of this together in November. We are in our second year of doing this, so we might even run an early survey again in Q1 next year, so that we can start plotting the trends. One of my biggest challenges when people talk about data-driven decision-making is that when you plug data out of its context, you can interpret it in any which way you wish. So the most important thing we can deliver to this market, to these employers and these candidates, is the plotting of the trend. So where do we see things increase? Where do we see things decrease? So that's the most important piece of work that we need to conduct over the coming 12 months. So for this, the timeline is the employee research, the talent research stays open till October. We will then run the conference and launch the report, which is free for everyone in the battery industry. And we will obviously communicate that on LinkedIn and through Battery Associates, etc. And then in early 2023, we will look at how these relationships between the employer and the employees develop, and also how the individual sentiments develop.
Thank you so much. And again, feel free to ask any more question, or we can go back to some of the specific points shared by Julia in her report. Julia, perhaps you could also tell us who are the HR leaders and the management profiles that you are looking to work with in the coming months or year on the survey and on the services that you offer in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So on the HR side, we find that depending on the size of the maturity and the funding cycle the business is in at the time, this could be a C-level HR professional. In larger businesses, so notably the ones that have already gone through significant growth and significant funding rounds, we would speak to the talent acquisition teams. Because we're a search firm rather than a contingency recruitment firm, often what we do is, in order to relieve potential clients of that horrible retainer, they need to pay and then pray for the best. When we work with new clients on the first proof of concept work, we often take that retainer away. And so what that means is that often we get passed from even a CEO who will meet us at an event like this, or a benchmark event, or events like this, that we get passed down directly to a talent acquisition manager or supervisor. and then we work on their behalf. As far as the research is concerned, we want to hear from everyone, because one of the things that was so poignant earlier this year when we did the employer research, was that we looked at the answers of the HR departments compared to the business, and we could plot some serious disconnects between the urgency of filling roles and what should be done about it, and also now between the talent, so this is the supply chain, right, and the demand side, so the employers. So we want to hear from everyone in this industry. Crunching the data, we have a great team here who do that, so there is no limitation.
Right. And yeah, we hope that's perfect. Thanks so much for sharing the link. And again, you can get in touch with Julia as well directly through the platform, and you can also request a meeting with her. John also asks, so in many normal quote-unquote industries, senior technical people will often move to more managerial roles as a way to keep moving up, which usually also means higher wages, benefits, etc. From talking to some peers, though, I don't get the feeling that this is happening in the battery industry because there is such a shortage for people with the required skill. Instead, senior technical people can keep growing on the technical tracks with increasing wages, benefits, etc. Have you noticed a similar trend, Julia?
Absolutely, John, you are bang on. Yes, that's what's happening. That's what's significantly different. Like you, I've come from other industries, and the best performing people get turned into managers, and then suddenly, for what they were really good at, you take them away and you put them in front of spreadsheets and HR portals, and you need to backfill the best person you've had in the business. So that makes no sense whatsoever, but it has been the traditional way of incentivizing people and moving them into the higher salary ranges, into the better benefits packages. What we're seeing in both segments of companies operating in the battery space, in terms of, when I say both, I mean legacy businesses who are pivoting, as well as businesses who are new, modern businesses. This is recognized as a fundamental flaw in nurturing technical talent. And we're seeing that even large traditional corporates are changing that as they're setting up their battery businesses or the battery recycling businesses, and they operate them completely differently to the rest of their corporation, and creating a track for people on leadership compared to with a comparable track for technical talent is something that we're observing. So in other words, what that means, if you are a scientist or an engineer or a chemist, if you're doing really well and you are overperforming and outperforming, you will now not be put in at this decision point to say, do you now want to become a leader and park all your technical skills and actually the things that we hired you for in the first place. Instead, what we are observing as a best practice is to bring somebody with a lack of technical skills, but excellent leadership and communication skills and engagement skills, up that track and buddy them with somebody from the technical side, so that this person can lead, communicate, inspire, but has the technical backing from somebody who's a subject matter expert. So yes, completely agree with you, and we're delighted to see this. Dermot comes from the technical side, I come from aviation side, and we scratch our heads why this gets done in our respective traditional industries.
Wonderful. And with that, we will close the deep dive session for today. Thank you all for your great comments and question. And as I mentioned earlier, please do reach out to Julia directly. If you'd also like to see the recording of Dermot's, Julia's business partner, Dermot offered another session on the talent side, career session, which happened earlier this afternoon. So let us know if you'd like to get those recordings. And Julia, thank you so much for presenting the findings of this survey. We are very much looking forward to more findings and to your continued research, because as we know, this is a very, very crucial element to helping make the sector and the industry more transparent. And so thank you for that. And with that, I'll invite everyone to join me back to the stage section for our closing remark of this 11-hour-long event. So thank you again, Julia, and looking forward to continuing our partnership. And thank you for sponsoring this event, as we'll say in a moment in our closing remarks as well, because it really does help make this event accessible to all. So with that, I will see you all on stage, and yeah, see you then. Thanks again.
Thanks.